Good afternoon, bookworms and flyleafs. Welcome to this week's episode of Author Reads here on Fae Productions. I am your host, Fairy Princess Lolly, and today I'm here with author Dani Hoots. But before we jump into all of the things, we have to, of course, get our obligatory things out of the way. And I wanted to apologize actually for not being with you guys here last week. I made a scheduling foobar, and that resulted in no author. So there was no show, and I do apologize for that. But first things first, if you guys will like, subscribe, and lasso the bell. Haha, that's the share button. I'm sorry. It's usually the bell. I changed it to the share button in the last show because I wanted to do something different, and then I forgot that I changed it. Anywho, I'm just trying to say, hit your share button and share everywhere and get your friends here because it's more fun with more people. Also, a shout out to today's show sponsor, which is Heartsong Arts Pottery, and they are your favorite site for earthy, natural, stained and glazed pottery of all sorts. And they have mugs, planters, plates, all kinds of things. You will find plenty to tempt you. They even have garden sculpture items with totems and fairy house statues. You can bring all of the magic and the fae to life in your garden and everyday crockery. They have free shipping on all orders that are $35 or more. They are local artist here, and they have been a fairy blossom artist. They've been just a greatly involved with Fae Productions. We appreciate their support. So check out Heartsong Arts Pottery. I'm seriously eyeballing one of their mugs because, as you guys know, I kind of have a mug thing. So I love my mugs. With all that said, you guys, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the show, Dani.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So please, if you will, introduce yourself to everybody and let's hear about you a little bit and give any shout outs if you have any shout outs you'd like to give.
Well, I'm Dani Hoots, and I write sci-fi, fantasy, young adult, and now I'm kind of going more towards LGBT books. My background is in anthropology, urban planning, and herbal science. I'm also an herbalist. I have my own apothecary. That's on Etsy. And then,
That is quite a background. Does that reflect a lot in the stuff that you write?
yeah, I mean, I definitely think it does. People are like, you don't use your degrees. I'm like, I use them every day, especially writing, like anthropology, world building, like making different worlds and stuff. And the same for urban planning. The herbal science, I mean, I'm using for my apothecary, but also like I like to put in some plants and tea and stuff like that.
Do you actually make up imaginary botany for your books?
I have not. That's like, there's so many like cool plants that we know that I wouldn't. I don't know.
You don't want to just add
I don't
some stuff
want
because
to add on. For I'm also writing, doing a co-author project, and for our herbs, we're gonna use like really weird common names.
yes.
Like, I can't think of any. I can't think of any on the top of my head, but like we know yarrow, and yarrow has a bunch of other names, like devil's foot or something like that. I can't,
Yes.
or something like that. And so we're gonna like use those names, so then all the plant geeks will go, "Oh." And they're just funner.
It will tingle them.
Yeah.
So I'm curious now, how did you get into writing the types of books that you're writing today, that you're going to read to us from today?
So for just writing in general, like I always love stories. Like I grew up with Sailor Moon, reading Isaac Asimov, like Harry Potter, all that stuff. Um, and so I just always loved telling stories. And like we, we didn't move recently. We're still going through boxes, like 2 years ago. But just now we're going through boxes, and like I found one of my really really old stories from like third grade,
That
and I
is hilarious.
and, like I read it and like, oh yeah, no, I still always go for like the bad boy.
So basically storytelling has been a thing of yours since forever.
Yeah.
You're just it's just now, like even after going through all of your college and whatnot, you have come into where you really should be.
Yeah. And then like, well, I thought I closed the door and there's a cat in here. Um Sorry, my cat's gonna be noisy.
Oh, that's okay. We are cat people here as well, so don't be surprised if you see a cat on our end. So once they hear me talking, they suddenly get all excited about it and want to get involved. Like, what's going on over here?
What
And
are we
did you
talking
say
about? But like when I was going to school at Arizona State University, they also had a writing program. It wasn't accredited, but like it was like a mentorship, which is I think better for learning. Well, I liked it because it was at your own pace and you didn't have to worry about grades and stuff like that. And you gotta work. I got to work with really cool sci-fi authors and fantasy authors, so
that's
that was
awesome?
cool.
You mentioned your Etsy store here as you were talking about the plants and the botany, et cetera, et cetera. And I had looked at your Etsy store a couple of times prior to the show, and it looks like you have a bunch of books in your Etsy store that you have. Am I seeing that correctly? Am I understanding that correctly? So you have, because there was just like a bunch.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious now, what are these books about, your previous ones from what you're going to read today? Because none of them are titled what you're reading to us from today.
Just the one now that the pre-order's up. But
yes. Does that mean we're going to get a sneak peek of this book? Is that what's that's excellent. Okay. So back to the original question.
Okay. So I've written over 20 books now.
Wow.
Most of them came out during COVID because like that's how I dealt with the pandemic, was just not pay attention to the outside world. So I have, most of them are fantasy. I have a Daughter of Hades series, which follows the daughter of Hades, and it's modern day Greek mythology. She was never supposed to be born, so none of the gods know she exists except Hades and Persephone. But she gets in a fight with her mother and then goes to the mortal realm. Like, no one will notice, right? But they do, and chaos ensues.
No one will notice. I'm just a goddess, subtle, very subtle.
And then my Wonderland Chronicles is a retelling or future telling of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And that one, she's like an artist, but has like a lot of self-doubt and worry and doesn't think she's good enough. And she gets transported to Wonderland and finds out she needs to save Wonderland. She's like, I can't. I'm just some random person. And it takes place in Salem, Oregon. And that's where I grew up. So.
So you are a local Northwest person.
Yep. Or was. Nice. I'm in Phoenix now, but.
Whoa, there you go.
Extremes.
What caused your move to Phoenix, if I may?
Well, so originally it was from Salem, and then my husband and I went to ASU down here because my mom's from down here, so I had a family and stuff like that. And then I wanted to go back to an actual city, so then we moved to Seattle. But then I didn't like the cold, so now we're back. But when I was in Seattle, that's when I went to Bastyr University.
I am kind of with you on the cold. Even though I've lived here in the Northwest, actually Washington, basically my entire life, I am not acclimated to it.
Yeah, like I never became acclimated. I'm like, and I didn't notice it the first 2 years, but then when I went to Bastyr, we had to go outside weekly, and like I'm like, it's cold here. To actually go outside.
So tell me a little bit, if you will, then about the book that we're going to be hearing from today.
So I'll be reading an excerpt of Revenge, and it's book 1 of City of Chaos series. It's an LGBT sci-fi western, and it follows Ellie and her whole nation, or zone is what I call them, 'cause it's sci-fi, was destroyed by a neighboring zone, and because none of the other creature or beings like their species. But the only way they could have done that is if they had the codes to get in, and her ex was like his family was in charge of that, so she thinks it was him, and so she's like going after him to get her revenge. And so
I like how we start out this series of books with the revenge, right?
Yes, revenge.
But this is the first in what you intend to be a series.
Yeah, it'll be 5 books, and hopefully every 3 months will be a new book.
Holy smokes,
That's the
you
plan.
write fast.
Yeah, very fast.
I am. So that makes me have questions that I shall have to save until the end of the show. So since the book is not out yet, I assume this means that we do not have a picture of the cover, or you don't.
I have the cover at home. My cat's on my iPad.
I'm just curious.
Can you get it on my iPad? He's like trying to get down, but he's also on the iPad, so I'm like, can't. Okay.
That is okay. They are like that. Sometimes I just end up holding them for, oh, okay, there it is. Let's see it. Aha, nice. I like it.
And the art is by Mona Finden. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Well, shout out to you, Mona. Nice artwork.
I really like her artwork.
All right. Well, for those of you guys listening at home, here's how usually the next part of the show goes. Dani will read to us, and while she's reading, I will be in the. I'm sorry. I hope I got your pronouns right. I didn't ask. I did. Okay.
Yes, sure.
I'm sorry. I failed to ask. But yes, I will be in the comment section ready to take questions from you guys to pose to her when she is done reading and basically listening. Then we will go ahead, get your names onto the Wheel of Win, and do the drawing at the end of the show as per usual. And are you ready to take over the screen?
Yes. I'm just going to do my timer. Very good.
All right. Then here you go.
So chapter 1, Ellie. It didn't used to be this way. I tapped my smoke on the ashtray, exhaling the herb-filled vapor. It was a delightful blend of local plants and made to order at the bar. This establishment seemed to have it all. Smokes, drinks, both alcoholic and not. Games, food, gambling. It was all here, meaning everyone in town occupied the small establishment at all hours of the day. Thank goodness all I could smell was my herbal smoke and the alcohol in my friend Zach's breath. I had a feeling the room smelled of sweat and wet fur. How many girly martinis are you going to drink tonight? I raised an eyebrow and flashed him a grin. Zach stared at me, his shimmering gold eyes unamused as he downed the rest of the fruity martini through his tiny straw. Why he always used them instead of drinking from the side of the glass, I did not understand. Perhaps it was so he'd feel like he was pacing himself, even if we both knew that was a lie. Setting the glass down, Zach pulled loose strands of red hair back into his bun. I'll have you know, these drinks taste a lot better than the straight alcohol you always drink. I sighed. It's not straight alcohol, it's called whiskey. Tastes nasty is what it is. I smiled a little. Anyway, I should cut you off there. That's your third one and our contact isn't even here yet. There isn't much alcohol in these, at least I taste none. Yeah, I've noticed you don't, but that doesn't mean there isn't any in it. We have gone over this. You're a year older than me. You should know better. He let out a breath of defeat. Oh yeah, a whole whopping year. But fine. I won't have another until the guy gets here. What's he look like again? He's a human, and honestly, I'm not sure we can trust him, but he's the only lead we've gotten so far. Glancing out at the crowded area, I noted all the beings that were having a good time. On the planet, there were a total of 5 different races, 6 if one counted the Pleiadians, separate from humans. There were the Lyrans, who all appeared like a mix of human and wildcat, spotted at least a dozen different groups that had Lyrans in there. And our bartender was one as well. That made sense since we're in the Lyran zone. Then there were the Syrians. There weren't too many of those here. Merfolk who could change from being fish-like to human in a matter of seconds. Typically, the Lyrans and Syrians didn't get along just like cats and fish, but never say that to their face. They don't appreciate that. Then there were the Silurians, who were lizard-like and cold-blooded, both physically and emotionally. There were a few in here as well, and I did my best not to make eye contact with any of them. Then, of course, there was the humans, which is what my kind appeared like as well, at least for the most part. I glanced around and found quite a few as humans like to travel and settle among the different zones and then create half species or half humans, typical humans. I sighed as I glanced around some more, seeing if I could spot my own race, as if that were going to happen. That was the new norm, I supposed. There weren't many of us Calcians left, shapeshifters who almost all had been destroyed in the attack 3 years ago. The other races didn't like us, as we could turn into any creature or race we wanted. The only way to tell we were Calcian is with our shimmering gold eyes. Each zone used propaganda against a race, making it illegal for us to shift, and eventually we were attacked. Problem was, our zone was heavily armed and shielded. Someone had to have given them the codes and told them how to get in. I fiddled with the wooden ring that hung around my neck. And that person was my ex, Cornelius Adams. Zach brought me back to the present. Not too many humans in these parts, though, so he might know something. Surprised he didn't want us to meet in the quarters. That was fair. Humans typically stayed in the quarter, which was across town. It was where all the humans usually stayed. Then the beach was on the other side of the city, and it was full of shelters for the Syrians to live in. It had been so long since I'd gone out into water for a swim. Taking a deep breath, I reminded myself what happened the last time I jumped in water and how the Syrians tried to kill me for entering their area. They also didn't appreciate the fact I could turn into one of them. Live and learn, I suppose. At the time, I was only 13, so one would think they'd be a little less aggressive about it. I thumbed my 5.7742 revolver, which was named Crazy Jack. It made me feel a bit safer when around all these distinct races. Well, 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 what do we have here? I heard a crackly voice to my right say. I turned to find 3 Silurian men. They wore dark, scaly leather made of the large lizard creatures called dragons. They either used for meat, clothing, or rode instead of horses, since horses couldn't hold up their weight. Only the Silurians could tame them, which I had a feeling had to do with the fact they appeared similar. The larger of the 3 Silurians was the one to talk. He was more than likely their leader, since they always went by who was largest. His eyes were almost at the side of his head, like a
Hey, somehow you got on mute. Dani, can you hear me? Somehow you got on a mute. Did a cat step on your tablet? It says that my little notice up here says, can't unmute your guest because your mic isn't connected. And I see your lips moving, but I hear nothing.
I don't know what happened.
Ah, there you are. Perfect.
Where did I stop?
It was just like the big one of the things was the first one to speak.
Okay.
So Solarians, am I saying it right?
Solarians, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll start there. Sorry about that. I have no idea what happened. Well, 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 what do we have here? I heard a crackly voice to my right say. I turned to find 3 Silurian men. They wore dark, scaly leather made of the large lizard creatures called dragons. They either used for meat, clothing, or rode instead of horses, since horses couldn't hold up their weight. Only the Solarians could tame them, which I had a feeling had to do with the fact that they appeared similar. The large of the 3 Solarians was the one to talk. He was more than likely their leader, since they always went by who was the largest. His eyes were almost to the side of his head, like a snake I wanted to shoot before it bit me. But in this crowd, I couldn't do that. I gripped my gun, but kept it in my holster. We aren't doing anything wrong, just enjoying some drinks. Go make trouble elsewhere. I turned and tried to ignore him. One Solarian grabbed my shoulder and turned me back around. I wonder if there would be a day where I could go to the bar without getting harassed. That prospect was looking bleak. Don't you dare ignore me, you Calcian scum. His tongue slithered in his mouth, leaving me disgusted. There was nothing pretty about Solarians. Why couldn't I ever get yelled at by something handsome? Zach stood up. Hey, leave her alone. Oh, don't worry. I wasn't going to forget about you. The Solarian nodded for the other two to stand near Nick. Glancing around, I noticed that most eyes were on us now, and it didn't look like anyone was going to help. Typical. No one wanted to get involved if there were Solarians. We have a client we are waiting for, so unless you have business with us, me and you will pay for our bounty hunting services. I flashed my gun at the Solarian. Then it's best you leave us alone. Are you threatening me? Molly mirroring whatever your tent is, kind sir. The Solarian hissed, glancing around me as if looking for some kind of weakness. If he ever ran into the few Calcians who were left, my gut told me that they usually backed down or groveled at his feet by now. I, however, was not one to grovel. I could see his long-clawed hand reaching toward his leather belt, more than likely where he stored a weapon. Without a second thought, I pulled out my gun and shot him straight in the chest. I heard his two friends let out a screeching hiss. Pivoting, I shot the other two. And then all hell broke loose. For the record, I didn't use my actual bullets, but just some trinks. The lizards were only asleep, not dead. Bullets, as in real bullets that could kill, screamed across the air now, raining down everywhere. I swear any time a fight broke out, everyone wanted to join, especially if it meant hurting a Calcian. Both Zach and I jumped to the other side of the bar. This wasn't the first time we had been in this situation, and we knew exactly what to do. I checked my gun as I glanced over at him. How many rounds of trinks do you have? Trinks were accessible by most. Real bullets were more difficult to come by, especially for Calcians. Don't get me wrong, we had some, but we weren't going to use them for something like this. He checked his gun, which was the same model as mine, but was named Lucky Susan. Enough. I nodded and turned to the barkeep, enormous Lyran man. He appeared like a lion with a large mane that was pretty well groomed for working at an establishment like this. He was reaching for the weapon that hung behind the bar, a large shotgun that would do a lot of damage. Barkeepers could protect their establishments, no questions asked. Had that rule been abused to do bad things? Many times. But the rules hadn't changed. Most never changed in this world. This would not end well. We had to stop it before it got out of hand. Well, more out of hand. And before it was all blamed on us. Held out 3 fingers, 2, then 1. Zach and I stood up and unloaded each of our guns with the trinks. We were used to this mess and had excellent aim. The trinks were immediate, and I watched as creature after creature fell to the ground. As my gun ran out of trinks, I knelt down and reloaded. Peering at the barkeep, I saw the horror on his face as he lifted the shotgun. I shot him in the chest and turned back around to help Zach. The barkeep hadn't realized we were just using trinks and thought we had just killed all these men. When they all woke up, they would realize what had happened, and we would be long gone. The last Lyran dropped to the ground, asleep, and I took a deep breath. I didn't feel comfortable putting my gun away just yet and kept an eye out for any movement. After a couple moments, I jumped over the bar with Zach right behind me. I surveyed the room. It didn't appear too many people had gotten injured by those with the real bullets that had been flying around the air. Most had taken cover and were hit by the trinks before they could get out of there. We saved most of them by knocking them all out, but no one would see it that way. I grabbed my smoke and left a few coins on the counter. Would not dine and dash. What happened here? A voice said from the entrance. Both Zach and I aimed our guns straight at the man. He threw up his hands. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not going to shoot. We slowly lowered our weapons. Are you Elvira Ryder and Zachariah Richards? Give him a once-over. He was human, same in appearance as us Calcians, except he didn't have glowing yellow eyes. That is, when we hadn't transformed. Are you the informant? Indeed I am. The name is Brian Hill. He glanced around. Come with me. Let's go somewhere that's a little bit more lively. Most aren't dead, just stunned. Well, you will be dead if they wake up and you're still here. If I hide out in the corner, you won't be disturbed there. Mr. Blondie turned and led us out of the bar. That's chapter 1. So chapter 2, Ellie. Now that I wasn't afraid of being killed for the moment, I took another look at Brian. He was a lot more clean-cut than I imagined our informant to be, and older, at least in his 40s. He was a medium height with blonde hair and blue eyes. I wondered if he was a human or part of the Pleiadians. Since he was in this establishment, I had a feeling he was one of the former. They also wore strange outfits, and he was wearing a typical suit, gray with some lavender accents. I expected someone a little rougher around the edges, although looks could be deceiving. At first glance, I just looked like some older teen who liked leather boots, button-up shirts, and my hat. But really, I was a bounty hunter, an successful one at that. It was how I could pay for information on the whereabouts of Cornelius Adams, the man who destroyed everything we ever had. Zach, on the other hand, well, he was a superb shot, I'd give him that, but he appeared exactly how he acted. The two of us already stood out with our golden eyes, but he stood out even more with his ginger hair. Very few Calcians had that color hair, and those were ones who mingled with humans. Zach had told me he was half human when we were young, and I didn't really care. That never stopped other kids from picking on him, not to mention adults as well. I didn't understand how they could be so mean to him, as he was the biggest sweetheart I'd ever known. When we get to the quarter, do you mind keeping your hats down a bit lower? I don't want to be seen with Calcians. You understand, don't you? We do, I answered as I pulled the brim of my hat down. I could see the surrounding area and the few that were out as the two suns began to set. It was about 50-50 for whether Lyrans were more active during the day. It seemed that since many of the zones interacted with them, they no longer were a nocturnal race. It was interesting how other cultures could change depending on their surroundings and relationships, but Calcians were never given that chance. The quarter was the name of any human district of the zones outside the human zone. Even Kaus had a quarter in their city, as humans were the only race that would interact with us. I always believed it was because we were most like them, minus the shape-shifting ability. I felt bad for the ones who'd lost their lives in the attack. We came upon the quarter, and different smokes and liquor fumes permeated the area, strong enough to cover up the smell of the ocean that filled the city. Men and women in ragged clothing sat on the corners, asking for money and performing tricks or playing some kind of instrument. That was one half of this area. The other half were rich men and women in fine suits and dresses who snubbed those who were either down on their luck or had been born into poverty. It was like this no matter which zone, but it seemed to me that it was only the humans that had this high of a divide between the upper and lower class. Perhaps that was why humans always intermingled with the other species, hoping for a better life. It was never the case, however. I watched as a man glanced around and pulled a wad of cash to hand to another gentleman. The man took it and guided the first man into the dark alleyway. Yes, this was definitely where the humans dwelled. Nothing legal ever happened behind those closed doors, or open doors for that matter. I felt a little safer since no security officer wanted to come to this area. As we made our way through the quarter, I noticed there were fewer people meandering on the street. The buildings were a lot cleaner and well kept. Before long, we were coming across small mansions with front yards and gates. This intel was going to cost us a pretty penny. I made sure Byron wasn't looking when I gave Zach a raise of an eyebrow. He gave me an equally perplexed eyebrow gesture. We didn't expect our information to come from someone as prestige as this. Raised a few questions in my mind, but I decided not to ask them out loud. We made it in front of one manor that had a large lawn of yarrow and statues of some human, maybe his relative or something. There were also a few fountains, which I found to be a waste of water, although I was from the desert and water scarcity wasn't as big of an issue in the Lyran zone. Summer flowers bloomed of every color one could think of, and were cut and maintained very delicately. We stepped inside and appeared exactly as I envisioned in my mind. Marble made up the flooring, and the walls were covered in a fancy red with wood that met it halfway up from the floor. Paintings that I imagined costing a fortune decorated the entry. A human butler of dark hair and a tall stature came and helped us out of our coats and placed our hats on a coat hanger. I was capable of doing such things myself, but apparently Byron couldn't. Please take your seats in the lounge area. I'll be right with you. Byron went up the stairs. I glanced over at Zach, who shrugged. Guess we should take our seat, Zach said as the butler gestured to the room. Once we were inside, the butler bowed and left our sight. Apparently offering refreshments was only for those of stature. That didn't matter. I had enough to drink. The room was a dark green, which contrasted the entry's red theme. There was a globe in the corner that marked the different zones on the continent that was Mu. Mu housed the 5 races, and the rest of the world we were on, Maldek, which was covered mostly with oceans or areas that weren't habitable. There was one fairly large island, but that was where the Pleiadians lived, and they didn't like visitors, nor did they like leaving their home. They were similar to monks and wanted solitude, but at the same time they would try to kill anyone who came close. It made no sense. My eyes drifted some more, and I found used whiskey bottles, maps, and books littered the shelves along the walls. I tried to calculate how much they would all be worth, but lost count. Sitting on the green leather sofa, I took a deep breath. The air smelled of cigar smoke. I don't think we'll be able to afford this information, Ellie, Zach whispered. And I don't think he'll give it to a charity case like us. I've been saving up for this day. Don't underestimate me. You've been holding out funds from me? I shrugged. Here and there, helps you stop buying such expensive drinks. But they're so good. I rolled my eyes, but he had a point. Drinks he liked tasted like candy. I still preferred hard liquor, however, as for some reason it never left me with a hangover. It didn't make sense, but I decided not to look a gift horse in the mouth. Do you really think he has the information we need? Zach asked as he leaned back inside. I mean, after all this time, did we finally find someone who has the answer to what we are searching for? I think he does. Zach glanced over at me from the corner of his eye. And are you willing to kill him when you find him? Clutched the ring that hung around my neck. That was the plan. I would take my revenge on the man who betrayed me, betrayed our kind. There was no repenting for what he'd done. Sorry to keep you waiting. Byron came back into the room. Both Zach and I stood, but the man waved us to sit down. You don't need to be so formal. Look, I began. I don't care for small talk. What do you know and how much? Byron grabbed a pipe and filled it with some ingredients and lit it. It isn't a matter of money, but more of what you will do for me. Glanced over at Zach and he nodded. Who do you want us to kill? So, chapter 3. Zach. Byron smiled and took a few puffs of his pipe after Ellie asked her question. Wasn't quite sure what to make of this guy. He seemed prim and proper, but we all knew that was facade. The rich in the human zone were more corrupt than any other zone, other than the Solarians, of course. But that more had to do with them not caring about any other race other than their own. This man before us probably had a lot of secrets, ones that not even Ellie nor I could dream of, and that was saying something. He took the pipe out of his mouth. It's not that simple. I glanced over at Ellie, who had assumed the same thing I did, and that he wanted an enemy dead. Anytime we asked for information from someone, it was either a sizable sum of money or some poor SOB in a coffin. We waited for Byron to go on, but he took his time as if trying to pick the right words. I'm part of a society of sorts, exclusive naturally and by invitation only. We have members from all the zones. Looked over at Ellie, checking to be sure she wouldn't make any remarks. I could tell she was biting her tongue. Cowsons were never invited to these so-called societies. They were simply a bunch of rich assholes getting together to see how they could rule over the planet and cause problems for anyone under them just for some extra cash. It was despicable. Byron went on. However, there's a new gentleman who's trying to come into society and has already gotten the favor of some of the higher-ups. I'm afraid that he might succeed. So you want him to disappear, as in kill? Ellie more stated than asked. He had said it wasn't that simple, but I agreed with her. It sure sounded like he wanted us to kill the guy. Putting his pipe down, Byron crossed his legs and rested his hands on his knee. I don't care what you do as long as he doesn't win. He shouldn't be part of our society. He's not someone I want in the group. He's what you might say not of pure blood. I smacked Ellie before she made a comment. She rubbed her arm and shot me a look with her golden eyes, but didn't say a word. I could tell by how the corner of her mouth lifted that I had been right. She would have said, "Wasn't that what they all did?" Byron let out a cough. I have information on him. The vote is in 2 weeks up on Xenon. I'm hoping you will deal with the situation before then. Ellie nodded, her lengthy auburn hair bouncing as she did. Yes, we can. I responded in agreement. Good. Byron stood up and grabbed a pile of papers that had been on his desk. His name is Gabriel Pickett. He is also a human and easy to pick out in a crowd. He is young, about your age, has black hair, brown eyes, but don't let that fool you. He is half Syrian. Looked up the photo on the stack of sheets he gave us. He was right. He did not appear Syrian-like, other than how his eyes and face structure appeared. But he didn't have the sharp teeth nor full black eyes like a Syrian. I would have thought he was a complete human if I had bumped into him on the street. Not that it mattered. Having spent years dealing with the prejudice of not only being a Calcian, but also a half-breed, I knew what this kid was going through. Not even my home of Calus ever accepted me, except for Ellie and Cor. But even then, Cor betrayed us, so really all he had was Ellie. And once I hear where that he's no longer a problem, Byron sat back down. Then I'll give you the informations of the whereabouts of your Cornelius Adams. After seeing where he lived and now knowing that he was part of society, I didn't doubt that he knew where Cor was. He not only had the resources to know where people were at any given moment, he also had more than enough money to hire people like us, which meant we could probably get some cash with this as well. Score. I was the one to ask the next question. What if we kill him right before the meeting? How do you know that we will still get a How do we know you will still get us the information before you head up to Xenon? It's not exactly a place the two of us can go. I'll leave it with my servant of this house. She'll have the papers for you. Don't worry. You will get your information. I guarantee it. Do you have any other questions? Flipping through the pages, I double-checked everything. It seemed straightforward. Go in, kill the guy, come back. Target wasn't that high in society, at least not according to his information, so getting to him wouldn't be an issue. All my inquiries had to do with how he got info on Cor, but that wasn't information the client ever liked to answer or even get asked. I guess I would just have to keep my mouth quiet for the time being. Glanced over at Ellie, who was biting her lip. It seemed she had a question. We need bullets, she commented. If you didn't know, Calcians like us have a little trouble buying any weapons. I mean, we can find them through our sources, but that'll take a little time, and I have a feeling you want this done sooner rather than later. How many bullets do you need? Byron asked as he grabbed his pipe and took a few more puffs. The side of Ellie's mouth curled up. How many you got? That is almost the first 3 chapters.
Okay. It is 2:48. Are you wanting to finish, or are you?
But it was good. It was a pause moment, a scene break. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I like how that ended. How many do you got? All the bullets. Thank you. Okay, now I'm curious because I can see that it has words on it. What does your cooler water drinker say?
It's a scene from Blue Exorcist.
I am not familiar with it. I'm like, oh, look, I want to read it right now. Okay, so we do have some questions out here from everybody. Yeah, let me go. What was that?
Okay, it was in private chat, not comments. So I was like, okay, people did show, yay!
Yeah. Let's see. Let me scroll up here because I'm trying to find where did they start. Oh gosh, there are more comments than I guess we got carried away. Let's see. We'll go with this one first. You have a really rapid rate of writing. What is your process and how are you able to do that?
So for some of it, okay. First books in series take me a lot longer. It'll take me like 6 months, which still is shorter than a lot of other. But like I'll develop it for quite a while. So it's probably more like a year because like I have ideas for books that will not come out till a year or 2 years because there's a lot in my head and they're all series. So they're kind of in the back of my brain. So like, and I write down notes. So I'm kind of like plotting and getting the characters and knowing them. And that takes a while. And that is usually what takes the longest for me. But then once I get like the first book down, and let me back up. So like how I develop a series, I always know how it will end. Like I know what the ending scene will be. I'll jot it down. And then my characters kind of figure out how to get there. And then so like once I have the first book down, I know what who the characters are. I know my setting. Typically, sometimes, they travel. So like books 2 through whatever, I can write a lot faster because I don't have to spend that time like character developing and all that. I mean, they develop in the book, but like getting to know them. And that's why I'm faster. I also have a great editor.
That always helps.
Yeah. And like not pre-ordering, but like telling your editor, I'll have it to you this date, gives you your deadline too.
Right.
And then another way, and because I know a lot of authors or aspiring authors get tripped up, is like you write a scene and then the next day you'll go through and start editing, and then you'll just be stuck on that scene for a long time.
Yes.
What you need to do is finish the whole book. If you change something halfway through the book, like I've done that a lot, you put a note and then go back after you finish everything.
Later.
Yeah. And that's another way to be faster.
That way you don't get stuck in the never-ending edit loop.
I also can write 1,000 words at least per hour.
Holy
as long
smokes.
as I know what I'm going to write. And I have the opportunity because I have an awesome husband with a stable job to not have to do a 9 to 5. So that's another reason I can spend so much time writing.
It's almost like you're just taking dictation from your brain after your brain has figured it out, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's like, okay, I know what it is. And these characters, they I don't know if it's if everyone has this, but like my characters know what's going on, and they'll just do whatever they want. They don't listen to me. Just go. I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this now.
So I had a question. I'm just going to stick it in the middle here, which was the Lucky Susan and Crazy Jack are the names of your two characters' guns, and is there meaning behind those names?
There is for one of them. So Crazy Jack is actually a character in my Sunshine series. I'm seeing if anyone catches.
You got a little Stephen King crossover, right?
I can do that now. I have so many books.
That is kind of cool, actually.
I don't know. That just popped in my head, and I was like, okay. It's like
a little Easter egg, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you're actually not reading to us anymore. I can take that banner down. Let's see. back to our comments. Okay, there was another question. Not sure if this has already been asked, but what drew you to the Wild West theme?
So like I love Star Wars. I mean, that's Western. Firefly, and then like I realized like my favorite anime growing up was Trigun, which is a space western. My favorite book is Gunslinger Girl by Lindsay Ellie, and that's so I realized I really like sci-fi westerns, and so I'm like I'm gonna write a sci-fi western. It's gonna
That's it. That's going to be your thing.
yeah. And I'm like okay.
So when you do this, do you, in your world building, do you have your whole world then also built out before you even start writing it? Like, do you flesh out the different types of creatures and aliens and all of the stuff, or does that grow as your stories begin to manifest?
A little bit of both. Because I'm not an author who like makes every single detail this big. Like I know a lot of fantasy authors do. So like I'll get like the aliens or species. I guess they wouldn't be alien. Are actually based off of Starseed. Would that be modern myth or like?
I'm not sure what Starseed is.
Starseed is like a neo, not pagan, but like a neo belief. I don't know.
You mean yes, like kind of the indigo
Yes.
star. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Okay. I thought you were referencing a show maybe.
Oh,
so I was like, I don't think I know this one, but
like that spiritual movement. So I'm actually basing the aliens off the different star seeds.
Oh, that's cool.
Except Calcium isn't, that one's made up. But most of the words in it are actually based on that because I like basing stuff on mythology. I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to do like a modern one, especially with aliens, and then like I'll have reference, and so I based all stuff like that. My world. So it's really hard to develop a world because then you realize how big worlds are.
Yeah, definitely.
And so like, and there's a little description there. The world that they're on is smaller. Gravity still works like that. I can make it smaller. But the continent is kind of small, and so like I didn't have to worry about that. And then the rest is kind of like like Venus mixed with like just not habitable. Like,
do you make maps for all of these? Are those in your books?
I need to. I should. That'd be cool.
Cartography.
But I should get some maps. Like I know it in my head. I did jot this one down, and then like my Sunshine series I did.
Well, so and we have a few questions here left, but I want to say, you guys, now is the time to start putting your names into the comments if you want to be entered to win. And yes, into the comments, and I'll go ahead and we'll ask our last couple questions to give you guys time to get your names in. So here's a good one. With so many genres incorporated into the story, like sci-fi, Western, LGBTQ, what elements of those disparate genres do you find most difficult to incorporate?
I guess it's more the Western and sci-fi, like knowing how to do the technology. So like having that mix, because like she does use coins, but other places they do credit, and like I had to like develop. Okay, I still want that old Western feel, but be able to fly to the moon, like
right.
And like Trigun, if anyone's seen Trigun, is like that, where they're you have some stuff that's really sci-fi and technology, but that and like explaining that was a little bit difficult, but then I realized it's kind of like now we in this Western world we have computers and stuff, and other parts of the world doesn't. So like it took a while, but I think I hope I explained it well enough why different people use different things.
So that kind of building actually on that question a little bit, it makes me also wonder, how do you come up with the names of things? Because sometimes naming is hard.
It is. Half the time, like especially sci-fi, you can do like letters and numbers. I usually like find an object in the room and just spell it backwards. And I know quite a few authors that do that. Maybe like rearrange the letters.
Like little anagrams of stuff that's just sitting within your line of sight. That's actually super hilarious.
It's
Like
helpful because like you can find some awesome words. Like
that's
Sunshine series is actually Salishan up in Oregon, just rearranged.
so that's so funny because I was like, it made me think, wow, if somebody knows that, then you could literally put a secret message in your books because every time a new non-English word is introduced, it could it yeah, like and if you were to figure them out, like unanagram them in order, it would make like a secret sentence.
That would be
I'm just making things up for you, you know? I was like, "Oh, I love this. I like want to go through them all now and like unscramble all of the words and just see, right? Like what was this one? What was that one? Um, that's funny. I've never heard of that as a method from an author yet, and I super, super
cool.
like it. Like I'm like, oh, I have so many things. I could have a never-ending supply of weird words.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. About how long are your books? You plan to have 5 books in this series?
So for my other YA, a lot of them are only like 40 to 50,000 words. I like shorter books.
So kind of novella length, actually.
Almost novella. Yeah, they're like right on
Yeah.
the border. This one though is 70,000. So
Oh,
this
yeah, okay.
and this will be my goal is to be 70,000 for every book. Maybe well, the plan is for book 5 to be a Kickstarter, and it'll include a couple of novellas, some short stories as a bonus for if you buy through the Kickstarter. So be sure to follow me if you like.
Yeah, no, definitely. And
Collectors.
you know what? When you get your Kickstarter live, shoot me a message. I'll be happy to share that out to everybody as well. So yeah, no, definitely. That's why you're here to tell people about all your awesome stuff. So go give the likes and the follows on the Instagram. Um, and then let's see that made me want to ask a question, and now I can't remember what. Oh yeah, do you ever do extended universe stuff?
Of this, I have not. I might for my Sunshine series because like they're trying to find this myth, and I might someday actually like write out the myth. I feel like I was thinking about doing one, but I can't remember for what. Not yet. I have a lot of I have a lot of series planned, so like once they're
Oh,
done, I'm like, I can't look back. I can't look back.
that's actually a pretty good rule. Though also I will say, it's kind of a rule in YouTube land. I think you probably know as well since you have a YouTube channel, which is just like never go back and watch your old stuff
Yeah.
because you'll be like, oh, what was I doing back then? I don't even know.
I
Uh,
make weird faces sometimes.
yeah.
But I need to remember like, okay, count to 1, 2, 3, smiling for like at least a couple of seconds for when you like cut and paste it together. Because I just like
Yes.
see his face and like I'm like, no. I'm
It's
learning.
it's totally true. Like there's all these little things that you just have to get in and have to figure out. So all right, well we've got our names here from everybody and it is 3:02, so we are right at the time for oh hey kitty. I was gonna pick up my cat earlier. I was like reaching down and petting him because he was right at my feet. It's where he likes to sleep. Look at that regal kitty. Oh my goodness. Just chilling out there. Yeah. I'm like, I love you. Okay.
I'm
Uh,
important.
but I don't know. You were giving answers to the questions, and so I did not want to distract with a cat on the screen. So let's see here. Where is my little share our wheel button? And so there are 3 ways to get onto the Wheel of Win. You can join our Patreon, join our YouTube, or put your name in the comments right now. So I see Newt, I see Xavier, I see Flora, and so you guys are going to all get your extra entries. Let's see. And with that said, we'll submit the little button right here.
Ooh.
And yes, and this is for a copy of Revenge, correct?
Yes, it'll be out in I wouldn't be able to send it to 2 or 3 weeks because they're on.
Okay. So a little bit of a wait before the winner will get this, but that is what this is a copy for. You guys got to hear an advanced Alicia Shepherd. Congratulations! Yay! That is very cool. I believe that they will be excited to get that. So I think with that said, I think I got all of our questions. Let me just give a really quick scan back here. No, that is all of our questions from everybody. And with that said, is there anything that you would like to say to us all before we let you go today?
Yes, I am also doing a pre-order incentive or campaign.
Okay.
So if you pre-order and then fill out the form, which is if you go to my Instagram, it's in my link tree.
Yes, Facebook. It's also in the low bar as well. So
and I'll put it on my website right after this. I forgot. But you get a postcard size print of the art, a bookmark, and then if you order online and not through my Etsy, you also get a book plaque with my autograph.
That's cool.
And then also stickers of the 4 main characters with their pride flag.
Oh, that's cool. So this is all of the pre-order incentive. If people pre-order the book, they get all of these things that go along with their order once it comes out.
Yes, but you have to fill out the form. Otherwise, I can't see what Amazon and Ingram.
And this form is on your link tree, you said?
It's on my link tree.
Okay, let me grab that. I went to your Instagram and I see a link to your link tree there. Is that correct? Okay, I will share that out to everybody right now in our comments section. Happy to do that. No problem.
And then if you also, if you order through my Etsy, it'll be signed. And you'll get a tee, which will be City of Chaos, not the Slytherin tee. I don't have the bags done yet. But it'll be this size. And it's a black tea mixed with Lapsang, which is a smoky tea, vanilla, and cinnamon. And like this. Very
yum.
Western taste.
Gosh, your link tree looks so good. Looks better than my link tree.
I ended up it was getting so long. I was like, okay, I gotta.
I am gonna, if you don't mind, I want to do a little quick share here of your, because I know we have some tea lovers out there right now in the audience. And so I'm doing a little quick share of your Etsy store, because look at all of these mythology teas, fandom teas, and for Flora, who's out there watching, look, Flora, they're not in tea bags. It's loose leaf tea.
Loose leaf, and these bags are 100% compostable, and so are the labels, and so is whatever I ship to you. Like that bag is compostable too.
That is awesome. Let's see. Yeah, I was. We josh each other. We had a tea joke going today about being properly pretentious while drinking your tea. So I thought I would just share that since you brought that up as being part of the thing. And then here are your books we see down at the bottom and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. Yay. All right, you guys. With all of that said, should you buy Yon books from Dani, please remember to give her the reviews. And of course, you can find all of her links there in the low bar. And from there, you can find her link trees for even more. So please go give her the likes and the subscribes. And with that said, here it is Friday. So, and happy October. Yes, it is the 1st of October. So we excited. I decided to be orange for that. And it's like we kind of are coordinated because you're in all black and I'm in orange. So
yeah,
got the Halloween colors going on. So, all right. Well, I wish you a most wonderful weekend and a wonderful weekend to all of you guys out there as well. We will see you on Wednesday for Fae News. Actually, I take it back. We will see you next Tuesday, the 5th, for our online hedge game in Discord. And then we will see you on Wednesday for Fae News. Goodbye, everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon and weekend.
Thank you so much, too.
Hello, friends. This is Gun for Hammerhands. Thank you for checking out Fairy Princess Lolly's channel. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Use your troll hammer to ring that little bell icon to get notifications when she posts future videos. And if you'd like to support these magical creations, fly over to our Patreon and join the fairy family. Safe travels!